Is anyone doing this that's actually pro-freedom?
Glenn Beck quickly climbed to the top of cable TV stardom.
She thinks she's being cool. That's the problem with Elizabeth Warren.
But a smear campaign would move him from admired to despised.
I'm not that guy, and I'm not this guy.
This week, Glenn Beck on his career, politics, and media.
It got this bad because we failed in our duty to actually pay attention.
The future of technology, reason for both hope and fear.
Technology today just gives us extraordinary capacities, but it also is changing the way we interact with each other.
With artificial intelligence stepping in on new parts of life, there's a key question.
Will technology change, do you think, what it means to be human?
The US Postal Service dates back to 1775. Today, the agency is losing billions and in a struggle to survive.
Since 2007, every single quarter since then, the Postal Service has lost money. They have not reduced proportionately the number of employees as, again, a normal organization would.
This week, we follow the money to find out what might happen next.
Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. President Trump recently awarded the Medal of Freedom to the biggest name in conservative talk radio, Rush Limbaugh, who was diagnosed with cancer. If Limbaugh led the charge in what created a modern media divide, there's another name that helped turn that into partisan cable TV news wars, Glenn Beck. Today we talk with Beck about riding the wave of political and social commentary from CNN to Fox and beyond.
You know, a lot of people say that the media is biased, that they have an agenda.
Glenn Beck was first introduced to a national TV audience in 2006 when CNN Headline News hired him for a nightly program. Meantime, his national radio show drew 6.5 million listeners, and he won the Marconi Radio Award for Personality of the Year.
I went from, in 2007, that poll that comes out, around Christmas time, most admired men in the world. And I was number 3 or number 4. I remember I was between Nelson Mandela and the Pope. And I remember thinking, this is screwed up. But I went from that to exactly a year later being despised by so many people. And I'm neither of those. I'm not that guy, and I'm not this guy. But it allows what has been created. We turn each other into cartoons, and it's bad.
This is the story of that bend in trajectory from admired to despised.
Are you a Republican?
No.
What are you?
Independent.
Okay. Are you conservative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But
constitutionalist.
Just as President Obama took office in 2009, Beck was getting inaugurated at Fox News.
Fox offered me a job, and I said no to them several times, and then decided I'd do a couple of years there. And I did, and I didn't think it would be successful. I mean, we went in and we were like, 5 o'clock, nobody's going to watch this.
But they did.
I feel like President Obama is just saying, you know what? I've got that $3.5 trillion budget that we're doing. Is this cold? Yeah.
Beck used his program to criticize President Obama and trace the money connections among liberal interests like Media Matters and billionaire activist George Soros.
And it all always starts with spooky dude, Mr. George Soros. Blah, blah.
His viewership quickly surpassed that of his cable news competition combined. Tens of thousands showed up in August 2010 when Beck held a Restoring Honor rally at the Lincoln Memorial.
Today, we are going to concentrate on the good things in America, the things that we have accomplished and the things that we can do tomorrow.
As revered as he was by conservatives, Beck became reviled by liberals as a dangerous opinion leader. An orchestrated campaign that was waged against him became a blueprint for many smears to come.
You were one of the first people, if I remember correctly, who was targeted in a really organized fashion by the liberal smear group Media Matters. So how was that? I mean, now I think a lot of people know what Media Matters is about and they understand the workings of propaganda a little better, but maybe not perhaps so much then. What impact did it have?
I still don't think people really understand how that works. That had a profound impact.
Just before congressional elections in 2010, Media Matters, a group funded in consultation with Hillary Clinton, announced a $1 million campaign to go after Beck. The money came from Soros, who said Beck's show could incite domestic terrorism. The organization claimed Beck encouraged unfounded conspiracy theories and trafficked in anti-Semitism, particularly in his attacks on Soros, who is Jewish. For Beck's part, he gave as good as he got. The day after Soros and Media Matters announced the $1 million to target him.
$1 million? That's it? Not worth more than $1 million? Gee, Mr. Soros, you're not inciting violence over there towards me. You're not making me public enemy number one, are you? I hope not, Mr. Soros. Somebody says something like this and some nut job could go violent.
Media Matters partnered with other activists in a DropFox.com campaign to attack Beck and pressure his advertisers. Before it was over, more than 100 companies reportedly canceled support for Beck's show, including Walmart, Geico, Verizon, and Chase. Days after Media Matters announced plans to double down with a team that would do nothing but churn out anti-Beck articles, lobby advertisers, file defamation suits against Fox, and conduct opposition research on Fox employees, Fox News announced Beck's last day, the end of June 2011. Beck says his departure was about more than the campaign against him.
I started to want it. And when you want something because of the fame, there's nothing like being on TV and knowing the White House is watching. And if you shift your weight, they're all like, what is he doing? Why is he doing that? There's nothing like that. It's intoxicating. And I realized one day, I like that. And it was a terrifying thought.
What were the terms that you left Fox under? Did you leave on good terms, or were you?
Yeah, I think so.
You just ended a contract and left?
Yeah. I don't think Roger believed me. They were offering us not, anything grand, but, they were offering us a new contract. And I didn't want to do it. My wife and I talked about it for a long time. And I kept telling Roger, and they kept offering more money. And I kept going to his office, no, we're really leaving. And he says, you're not leaving. And what was a really strange comment, he said, no one leaves. And
like Hotel California.
Yeah. And it's because it has you. And I said, no, you're wrong there.
After Fox, Beck moved to Texas and started a pro-America, pro-free speech news and entertainment company called The Blaze. It struggled as a cable TV channel, and that part of the business recently shut down. Now with programming on radio, podcasts, social media, and the web, The Blaze reportedly reaches 165 million people a month.
There's a lot of confusion and misinformation swirling around about impeachment, the rules, witnesses, evidence. So let me just cut through and translate bullcrap right directly to English.
Are you a Trump supporter?
I wasn't.
Who'd you vote for? If you
Independent. An independent.
You going to vote for Trump this time?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. He, especially now with the left, has gone insane. Donald Trump had no record when he was running. And anything that he had ever said is pretty liberal. And he's a New Yorker, and I know New Yorkers, and their conservative is, a Texas Marxist. And I just didn't think he would do any of the things he said. I was for Ted Cruz. I didn't think Ted Cruz would have done half of what Donald Trump has done with Israel. I didn't see that one of his worst traits, his just sitting on the crapper at 3 a.m. going, oh, is actually turns out to be one of the most important things he does. He's a hand grenade. And by being a hand grenade, he's exposed so much, except to the people who are doing it. Everybody else is looking at it and saying, yeah, he's bad, and that was wrong for him to do. But look what we're looking at now. How can you say that doesn't exist?
For people who watch media and politics today and have a lot of complaints, or maybe they don't even want to watch it anymore, what would you say to people who are wondering what your thoughts are as they say to themselves, is it worth paying attention to?
It got this bad because we failed in our duty to actually pay attention. We were duped by politicians on both sides, and we wanted to be. It's easier, and we thought it was okay. We want to give our responsibilities to somebody else, and it's got us into this. If we don't pay attention now, our children won't be in a position where they're allowed to pay attention. It won't matter because they can't do anything about it. We still can do something about it.
By the way, a little over a year ago, The Blaze merged with CRTV, founded by conservative radio star Mark Levin. For more with Beck, listen to our podcast Full Measure After Hours on iTunes or your favorite distributor. Ahead on Full Measure, we follow the money in the US Postal Service. But first, an exciting and sometimes frightening glimpse at our technological future. Here on Full Measure, we love to examine technology and the future of what's possible. It always seems to come with a mix of excitement and concern, as Daniel Gerstein makes very clear in his book, The Story of Technology, How We Got Here and What the Future Holds. What is the future of technology?
Well, I have a mix of great excitement and some trepidation. And that is because I think that technology today just gives us extraordinary capacities that we didn't have, but it also is now allowing us to manipulate the very essence of life. And it's changing the way we interact with each other, between nations, between governments.
Will technology change, do you think, what it means to be human?
Well, I think that is exactly what's happening with biotechnology. We have learned how to manipulate the DNA very effectively. We know only the functioning of about 1.5% of those. But imagine when we're able to understand all of the interactions, we would be able to dramatically alter the essence of life.
Most people would say, I think, that they would see implications from manipulating DNA if it made us healthier or better. But the question is, what is better and where's the line drawn?
So if you were to ask a mother if she wanted her child to be born with some inheritable disease that could easily be cured, you'd almost unanimously get people saying, oh, absolutely, we should cure that child. But the real question is what happens when you begin to preferentially change DNA. I want blue eyes. I want to be tall. I want to have superhuman strength. Those sorts of manipulations could be possible in the future.
What about the military applications? Is there a time when you could see us fighting wars almost exclusively with drones now, perhaps, but then robots and other things that have nothing to do with humans? And then is that better or worse?
My concern about the complete automation of the battlefield using artificial intelligence is it takes the human dynamic out of the equation. And with that, I wonder if perhaps we make war too easy to fight if we reduce our human costs.
What is the Internet of Things in simple terms?
I monitor my houses with cameras. I can open doors. I can turn on lights. All of those can be done using the Internet of Things. I think there are a lot of implications that people haven't even started talking about yet. First is we are losing our privacy in leaps and bounds. We have devices or we have software on there such as Siri and Alexa, which are listening to what we're saying. They are deciding what our preferences are. And if we say something and Siri picks it up, then we could be getting, would you like to buy this?
Let's say you're having a private discussion about a health issue, and somehow your conversation is picked up and a decision is made unbeknownst to you about you because of that.
Yes, and let's take it one step further. Perhaps you're not being selected for a job because they have picked up that you have a temper or they believe you have a temper because you had an outburst. And so, you know, how we monitor ourselves or handle ourselves, both in public and private, will certainly be affected by this Internet of Things.
What do you see as ways we can avoid those dark views?
We have to think about what are those categories of technologies or activities with technologies that we should not become involved in. And with the abilities with biotechnology and the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, our ability as humans to really manipulate our environment and change the human experience is something that we at least need to consider before marching off into the abyss.
An Israeli company has just announced approval of its new technology that detects early-stage cancer by navigating inside the lungs. Coming up on Full Measure, the money-losing US Postal Service. We follow the money. The search is on for a new Postmaster General to head up our troubled system. The Postal Service is losing billions of dollars, and some have suggested selling parts of it to the private sector. Josie Sturman follows the money with Tom Schatz, head of the watchdog Citizens Against Government Waste.
The U.S. Postal Service dates back to 1775, authorized by the Constitution in the same clause that created our Army. Benjamin Franklin was the first Postmaster General. The Pony Express started in 1860. Free rural delivery began just before 1900, though the formal name United States Postal Service wasn't adopted until 1971. For many, the sight of a post office is nostalgic.
Everybody wants the post office in their little town, but the post office used to be a gathering place. It used to be somewhere where people would go to get the mail, they would talk to their neighbors, it was very social. That doesn't really exist anymore.
Today, the postal agency is in serious financial trouble. It's structured differently than other federal agencies. It doesn't take our tax dollars. Instead, it's been forced to rely on its own sales revenue to stay afloat. And for over a decade, that hasn't been working.
Pardon the pun on this, but we know the Postal Service is pretty much failing to deliver. How bad are the losses for this agency?
Since 2007, every single quarter since then, the Postal Service has lost money.
The Government Accountability Office estimates the USPS has lost nearly $70 billion in the last 11 years. Part of the reason, we're modernizing the way we keep in touch. We can communicate through email and ship items from Amazon or through any number of specialized services. In 2018, the amount of mail was down by more than 3 billion pieces, but the post office hasn't adapted by downsizing.
There were too many post offices, too many employees. As the losses have increased, they have not reduced proportionately the number of employees, as again a normal organization would.
In 2018, the White House called for a task force to evaluate the Postal Service, which floated the idea of using partners in the private sector. The Postal Service is fully privatized in countries like Germany, the United Kingdom, and the Netherlands.
In other countries, they have shifted to the private sector for their postal service activities, and certainly that should happen and could happen in the United States. It's unlikely it will go that far, but there are a lot of private sector opportunities for postal services that should be done and could be done, and that's a step in the right direction.
Heard how the government wants to sell off the U.S. Postal Service?
It's been met with opposition from workers and labor unions who launched an organization called U.S. Mail Not for Sale. saying privatizing the service would disrupt affordable delivery and hurt rural America, including elderly people who depend on mail for prescriptions. Right now, as the Postal Service searches for a new Postmaster General, the future of one of our oldest agencies remains in question.
And I was surprised in talking with you earlier about the popularity of the Postal Service.
There was actually a poll done in 2018. They measured Americans' response. They found out the Postal Service is actually the most popular agency. It beat out even NASA and the Park Service.
Okay, thanks, Josie. Next on Full Measure, new questions about the safety of 5G technology. We've been covering the growing federal concerns and expanding antitrust investigation into the big 5 tech firms in this country. The European Union is going further, announcing new plans to put restrictions on artificial intelligence technology there in fields like public surveillance cameras to medical data and self-driving cars. The EU has fined Google over $9 billion during the past 3 years, but now admits the fines just don't seem to be having an impact. An update to our coverage of the rollout of new 5G technology. It promises to make our connections to the internet and all of the things connected to the internet faster and better than ever. Now Switzerland, among the leaders in adopting 5G, has placed a moratorium on the new network due to health concerns. Officials reportedly say they need further testing on the impact of 5G radiation before they can set a standard. In the U.S., 2 federal agencies have said available scientific evidence does not support the idea that 5G emits enough radiation to hurt people, but there is broad concern. The Swiss Medical Association and other medical authorities argue there are unanswered questions about the technology's potential to cause damage to the nervous system, cancer, and other health problems. Next week on Full Measure, Americans are largely kept in the dark over what we're charged for medical procedures and why it's so different depending on where you go. Hospitals are fighting the push to reveal what they charge up front. We're off to North Carolina, where one state leader set out on a mission to save money by removing the secrecy. So you ask the hospital system, how much do procedures cost? How much do services cost?
Correct.
And they told you what?
And what they sent back from that simple request, this is the master price list of UNC Healthcare.
They blacked it out.
Every single word was blacked out.
The North Carolina Project and what the rest of us can learn from it next week on Full Measure. Until then, thanks for watching. We'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable.